Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today we're discussing a watch launched back in 2018 as you see it here. Lost in the collection of new premieres and Breitling Navitimer 8s that year was a redesigned core Navitimer collection and a couple of new introductions in the form of shorter spans across the wrist lug-to-lug and a new naming scheme plus new tone-on-tone dials. When you see this tone-on-tone combination of, for example, black on blue, you're supposed to think in-house movement at Breitling. And you can see this example with a case stamp of 5021 was made in the 50th week of 2021, so it is quite recent. That's how Breitling case stamps work. We're looking at the Navitimer B01 Chronograph 43. The name says it all. In steel, it's 43 millimeters in diameter. It's 14.3 millimeters thick from lug to lug. It is 49 millimeters across the wrist with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now we'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and it wears nicely. But it is large. As you can see down the barrel, the lugs are pushing out towards the edge of my wrist. Not quite over, not yet, but getting close. You can see the same thing from over the top. I'm pulling the strap fairly tight here, so I am compressing my wrist a bit. But I'd recommend your wrist be my size or larger to wear this. You could probably fit it on a 15 centimeter circumference wrist, but for fit and aesthetics, 16 and up. You can also see that because the watch is fairly thick with a outcropping or cantilevered bezel, it's going to get hung up on tight cuffs, though jackets should be okay. Breitling straps are always a pleasure. You expect on a pilot-style watch that you'll get calfskin with a contrasting stitch, but here we get the more expensive alligator leather. Medium rectangular scale, semi-gloss. You can see it's bolstered to give it a lot of thickness. Contrasting stitch. We do have a sheer-cut side showing the enormous layers of leather, a very expensive strap. We have calfskin on the bottom. You can see no crimping, no gouging. A brand new Breitling factory strap. A Breitling stainless steel pin buckle. We've got the older Breitling winged B logo on here, so the buckle's probably a little bit older than the watch. It was probably a piece sitting around at the factory when the watch was assembled. And then we have a little raised bridge, so you can see how the bridge is raised above the two prongs. So when you stick the strap in and you put it on your wrist, the strap mostly sits inside the buckle rather than stacking up thick on your wrist. You can see that the case and the dial are more up-to-date with the new Breitling B logo that is bereft of wings, because since 2018, Breitling wants you to think of it as a land, sea, and air sports watch company, not just flight. The Navitimers were introduced in the 1950s. Some say 1952. That's Breitling's official line. Most historians agree probably 1954, but in either case, the watch has a very 1950s case aesthetic with squared-off lugs, minimal beveling, a narrow mid-case band, pump-style pushers, and a no-guard profile here. We have a bezel that's a combination of satin and polish, and it's sharply knurled, which makes it easy to grip. Easy to use, the calculator scale. This was not the first watch to have a logarithmic scale flight calculator. It was not even the first Breitling. The Chronomat had a much more limited type of circular slide rule in the 1940s. But you can see here that we have a bunch of different units that are actually listed and labeled. So the idea was that it gave you everything you needed to calculate rates in flight. And so it's basically for multiplication and division. I'll demonstrate how this works. Let's say you want to divide 12 by 3. Well, you take 12 on the outer scale, you move it over to 3. Remember, you got to keep decimals in mind, because that could be 1.2 divided by 3, 1200 divided by 3. We're just going to do 12 on the top, 3 on the bottom. You do it like a fraction. The number being divided is on the top. Then go to the index, which is the 10 on the inner scale. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, now let's say I want to multiply 50 by 2. Okay, easy enough. I'm going to put 50 over the index. Now I'm going to find 2. Well, 50 times 2 is 100. Remember, you got to keep those decimal places in mind. It'll give you proportions, but not correct magnitude if your decimals are off. So you got to use your brain here. Taking a look at the dial, we have rhodium-plated steel hands, indices, and logo for an upscale look. Metallic blue sunburst center dial. You can see we have dished and countersunk sub-registers. We have a little date down between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock. And of course, we have some shocks of red to punctuate this blue, black, and silver dial. You can see it has excellent depth, particularly when viewed from off-axis. Another thing, too, is that the thickness and curvature of the crystal creates a plexiglass-like effect, which I adore. Taking a quick look, the watch does feature lume. And then it has a couple of special functions. First, hacking seconds. Stop the watch, synchronize it to a reference time. Second, quick set date, rapidly cycle the date. We have a vertical clutch column wheel chronograph. You can see on the back of the watch, the column wheel still visible. Makes for super crisp actuation. The feel and the sound is among the best in the industry at any price. I'm always blown away by the feel of the B01 calibers. B01 calibers originally launched on the Avengers back in 2009. Pardon me, the Chronomat back in 2009, and originally designed for a Chronomat with a solid case back, the movement was not designed to be seen. Fortunately, in the Georges Kern era, he's the CEO now of Breitling, not only is the movement fairly good looking, but it's fairly large, so it doesn't look like it's disproportionately tiny inside a 43mm watch. So in addition to the column wheel, this movement features a vertical clutch. And so you can see with the vertical clutch, the chronograph seconds hand doesn't jump or stagger when you start it. It always resets precisely to the index at 12. Now the movement is an automatic winder with a 70-hour power reserve, a COSC chronometer certification. It's got the vertical clutch, the column wheel, stop seconds, quick set date, pivots on 47 joules. It is adjusted in 5 positions. And again, originally designed for a Chronomat with a solid case back, it was not designed to be seen, but fortunately it's one of the best looking automatic chronograph calibers that I've seen. And again, 70 hours of power reserve. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.